I'm starting the month with a bit of romance, and this vlog is going to be all about the Cliterature Readathon. The fifth round of the Cliterature Readathon is being hosted once again by Steph Loves Books, and this round is going to run from the 4th to the 10th of August. Steph has given us a bingo board to try and work our way through, and my goal for the week is going to be to get one line on the bingo board, probably this one. So for my TB, I have 4 books, and I'm really hoping to get 3 of them read and 1 at the very least started. The one that I'm not convinced I'm going to get finished within the week is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This book is a bit of a chunker, and from what I heard, it's fairly slow paced. My goal is going to be to chip away at this all week while I'm reading my other books. It'd be nice if I finish it within the readathon and get that new release square filled, but I'm also not going to stress out too much if I don't quite make it. This is going to be the October book pick for the podcast that I've just started up with one of my friends. And I think it's one I'm probably going to need to read a couple of times to be fully prepared to talk about. So I'd like to get it read in August because that gives me a second chance to read it again before we actually record the podcast. I haven't had the best luck with V.E. Schwab's books in the past. I always really enjoy when I hear her speak. I think she's a great person and a really fascinating writer. I always love her premises, the ideas of her books, always 100% hit for me. But I think all of the books I've read, I've usually came in somewhere about a 3 or just vaguely indifferent. And I have tried and tried and tried and tried to love her books, and I've just never got there. I'm hoping this will be the one that turns it all around. It sounds really up my alley, but I'm going in with a bit of self-awareness that if it doesn't work, that's okay too. The first book that I'm going to add to the TBR after Bury Our Bones is The Holy Maiden's Guide to Getting Kidnapped by Katy Nyquist. This one is going to be doing double duty for me. I also have it as a NetGalley arc, and as well as the Cliterature Readathon this week, I'm going to be doing the Arc August challenge for the entire month. I've taken part in loads of different Arc August challenges over the years, hosted by different creators on different platforms with different ways of doing it. But because I've done so many, August just feels like the month to tackle arcs for me. And when I saw that Vanessa at Read with Dr. B was hosting a kind of competitive Arc August challenge, I thought that was a really good one to take part in because I have not been hitting the NetGalley goals that I set for myself at the beginning of the year, and I really want to see if I can make a decent dent in August. So the Holy Maiden's Guide is going to be working for that too. I'm going to be counting that for my summer read square. In a world where magical powers are commonplace, Holy Maiden Isabel is revered as a goddess among her people. She's the only one able to heal the sick and injured with a simple touch. But her spectacular gift comes at a steep price. For each person she saves, she loses a day of her own conscripted life. To add insult to injury, she's supposed to maintain a pure image, even though she'd rather drink and play dominatrix until her sorrows fade away. After the corrupt head Cardinal Yang abuses her gifts, forbids her from leaving the city, and takes her brother hostage, Isabel doesn't dare drag anyone else into her problems, especially since it won't change her fate. But when Dark Lord Cain arrives at her clinic doorstep, previously wounded, she's touched by his refusal to accept her healing lest it cost her another day of her life. The mysterious and sexy Dark Lord awakens forbidden desires in Isabel, and the nagging survival instinct she's tried to drown with booze and drugs comes back with a vengeance. She's less impressed, however, when he threatens to sack her city in return for his injuries. Fortunately, she can flirt her way into an alliance against the head cardinal instead. Armed with only a ferociously loyal bodyguard named Alzira, Isabel attempts to make the most of her mere months left to live, protect the refugees around her city, prevent a war, and hide her face blindness. But before her life flickers to its sad end, she must decide either to die a proper holy maiden or to risk it all to run off with Cain. I will be honest, this was almost entirely a cover request for me. It looks absolutely stunning. The next square on the bingo board would be the poll pick, and I actually put this in the Cliterature Discord. The book that was selected for me was You Had Me at Happier by Timothy Janovsky. I've read a couple of Timothy Janovsky's books in the past, and I have always had a great time with them, so I was really happy to get this one on the list. I actually do have this book on my Kindle as well. It is again another really overdue ARC, so it's gonna count for ARC August. But this particular hard copy I bought at Rare, and that's a kind of romance readers convention that just took place. I'm hoping that having the physical copy will motivate me to read it in a way that having it lost on my Kindle didn't. But I will have a full Rare book haul for you coming over the next couple of weeks. Oh, little town of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It may be charming, but Julian Boire can't wait to get out of there. Soon he'll be leaving to take an advanced wine course that will put him on track to become a master sommelier. Meanwhile, his OCD demands he keep clear of distractions, especially the hot new hire of his aunt and uncle's restaurant, Martin's Place. Which should be easy, because Greg Harlow is as ill-suited to Julian as a bold Cabernet is to a delicate salmon entree. As charismatic and confident as Julian is tightly wound, Greg is a TikTok mixologist who could charm a paper bag. One thing they do have in common: neither wants a relationship. Greg's history with dating is complicated, yet working together isn't. First, they're teaming up to launch a series of happy hour events at Martin's Place. Then, they're agreeing to a no-strings sex pact that includes new worlds of experimentation. Nothing is off limits, except a future. It's exactly how Julian wants it, except for the little part of him that wonders if maybe he's about to lose the kind of happy that can last much longer than an hour. And then the final bingo square in that line would be the treat yourself square, and that's just to read anything you want to. I have another book that I picked up at Rare, this time as an ebook, The Flower Arrangement by Katy, Carmine. And it should be fairly quick to get through, which would work great for this readathon. It's probably the book that I will tackle first while I start Bury Your Bones, because I'd really like to get a kind of a win in nice and early, just for my own satisfaction. It'll also give me a taste of this new to me author and let me decide whether I would want to continue with the series. Heartbroken after a bitter divorce, Brendan finds solace in running his beloved flower shop. His vow to think twice before jumping into a new relationship becomes hard to keep when he meets Hugh, a flamboyant hairstylist with the skillful hands and a cheeky smile. Hugh has finally succeeded in opening his own salon, but the glow of his success is overshadowed by not having anyone to celebrate it with. When brawny 6'3" Brendan appears in his doorstep with a bouquet of exquisite flowers, Hugh is tempted to break his no-dating client's rule. Their friendship blooms fast, and Hugh resigns himself to another straight boy crush. One kiss changes everything though. Hugh's world is set on fire, and even if Brendan gets cold feet, Hugh isn't about to let go of what could be love. So those are the 4 books that I'm hoping to be reading this week. That'll be covered in this vlog. I think I'm going to start with the flower arrangement, but I will let you know how I got on at my first check-in. So I know I said that I was going to check in with you about the flower arrangement kind of midway through, but there's honestly no point. I finished the flower arrangement. It's very much novella. I think it reads in just over an hour. This wasn't what I hoped it would be. In this one we have Brendan, who owns a flower shop, and he has been crushing on his hairdresser Hugh for about a year. In the rest of the series, I think we look at Brendan's brother, maybe someone that Hugh knows, and I think those become full novels. But I was interested enough that I thought this would be a really good way to try out Katy Carmine's writing. Unfortunately, the flower arrangement reads to me very much like the end of a novel rather than a novella. The pacing for me was all off. The first chapter opens with Brendan creating a flower arrangement that uses the language of flowers to tell Hugh how he feels about him. He's been doing this all year every time he goes to get his hair cut. And so far Hugh hasn't noticed. This is Brendan's kind of last attempt. He's about to go away to a conference and accept that maybe Hugh's just not interested. He delivers the bouquet and there's a little bit of a misunderstanding between them. They kiss. Brendan flees. In the second chapter we go to Hugh.
It's explained to him by his receptionist what Brennan has been doing with these flowers, and he realises that he also obviously is attracted to Brennan, but Brennan has left for his conference. He goes searching. Chapter 3, we get to the hotel. From then onwards, it's just a sex scene, which is fine. It's very spicy. If that's what you want, then this is great for that. However, to me, that felt like it was the third act of a book. I would have rather we cut that hotel room scene down to even 50% of the book, maybe less, or we expanded the front half of the novel. We're told that Brennan has been pining for Hugh for a year, ever since he was divorced, had a rebound fling, and then fell for Hugh. And yet we're told all of that in the briefest, most outliney way. We don't see any of it. It's all contained in that first chapter. And I just feel that if you're going to do, they've been pining for over a year, then I could have had some slow burn, some building tension. And I just didn't get that. I also feel you can have a book that is almost entirely spicy, but there should be some kind of character journey, some kind of change. And this one really didn't flesh that out. It wasn't a journey, it was more like an on and off switch. And it just fell flat, which is disappointing. But it did mean that I have ticked off a box. We're gonna count it. And I'm moving on to my next read. The Holy Maiden's Guide to Getting Kidnapped by Katy Nyquist. I'm a little unsure as to how much plot there is in this one. I didn't really look. The cover's gorgeous, but very much does set it up as being quite heavy on the romance, on the spice. I'm interested to see how much we fall on that romantasy, political fantasy kind of spectrum. So I am kind of currently reading both You Had Me at Happy Hour and The Holy Maiden's Guide to Getting Kidnapped at the same time. I think I'm about 40% through Holy Maiden and more like 80 through Happy Hour. So for Happy Hour, I'm having an okay time with it. It definitely has some interesting aspects to it. I think I told you in the setup that this is about a kind of Instagram famous mixologist who has taken a position at a struggling bar, and he briefly conflicts with their kind of in-house in training to be a wine sommelier. They both have had issues with relationships and commitment in the past. They're not looking for something long term, and they come up with a kind of friends with benefits situation. What I'm really finding really interesting in this and really enjoying is the representation in it, because our sommelier character has OCD, and the mixologist is on medication for anxiety, which causes erectile problems. And so the smut scenes that we get are really different. I've never seen that in any kind of romance so far. I don't think anyone, I've never seen it put into a romance and then seen these characters working around the problem while still keeping it really fun and really sexy. However, for the actual plot of the book, it's not bad, but it's not my favourite Janovsky book. The previous books I've read have been New Adult, which was a time travel story, and The Fake Dating Game, which was a bit like fake dating on Supermarket Sweep. And I think I gave both of those 5 stars. Absolutely loved them, cemented Timothy Janovsky as definitely an autobi author. This one, there's maybe not as much chemistry between them because we don't have any of that slow burn at the start, because they're getting into this relationship to be just a kind of friends with benefits. It happens early on, and I don't feel like you get the fun of seeing the attraction building over time the way you would if that wasn't part of the plot. So at the moment, I'm kind of sitting about a 3.5, unless either something really dramatic happens with the character work that really ramps up that chemistry, or if the plot does something really different towards the end. At the moment, it's enjoyable, and as I said, that representation I'm really enjoying. I think it's totally unique, and I'm really impressed with the way it's been treated. But it's so far coming in at the bottom of my Timothy Janovsky books. That said, it's still a really solid contemporary romance. No matter what happens with this, I definitely have at least one other Timothy Janovsky book that I physically own. The Holy Maiden's Guide to Getting Kidnapped has been the unexpected winner already of this readathon. I requested this one just based on the cover. It had a romantasy vibe to it. Honestly though, I wasn't expecting anything. This follows Isabel, who is a holy maiden. She's been blessed by the sun god, and she can heal with a touch. She can heal literally from paper cuts to, as long as she gets there while the body's still warm, she can bring back the dead. However, the cost of healing, no matter what kind of spectrum that healing is that she loses a day of her life. However, there's also a corrupt cardinal that rules the city, and he has made her take a blood oath that is, when her power comes to fruition, fully developed, they are going to kill her and use her heart in a kind of eldritch ritual that will grant this specific cardinal immortality. So no matter what happens, she has like 4 months left to live. At the same time, there is a Dark Lord, Cain, and in the lead up to these kind of world games where instead of fighting wars, the countries like the Olympics send magical fighters to kind of challenge each other for prestige. In the lead up to this, Cain has kind of arrived at the city. Idiot Cardinal tried to assassinate him, failed, and now Cain's army is coming in. Isabel is trying to uncover a potential murder plot. She's trying to save the refugees who are being used as human shields for the rest of the city. She's trying to get her brother out of prison because he's being caught by the cardinal spying. She's trying to do a lot of social reform in the time she has left. And she's lusting after Cain, who she meets through happenstance. So there is a lot going on, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I love Isabel as a character. I love how pragmatic she is. She's definitely got high moral ideals, but she's willing to do what it takes to make those things come to fruition in a practical way. We have a really nice dynamic between her and a character called Donya. Donya is like a women's activist. She's very much a suffragette type character. She runs protests, she runs marches, she campaigns for women's rights, for projects to kind of lift women up. She doesn't like Isabel because she doesn't realise that they're working together. Isabel's the only one that knows. Because while Donya creates this stir and this uproar, Isabel is then able to come in quietly, speak to the men in charge, make compromises, and kind of slide things under the radar. She very much uses the thunder and bluff that Donya creates to make small but significant changes in the city. And I really like that both these women and both their ways of tackling social change, both their ways of looking to help the poor are treated equally. We're really allowed to see the benefit of both approaches. They're both fully fleshed out, interesting women with their own thoughts and strategies. I always love politics in a story, but I specifically love it when we get to see different types of politics and how they play off each other, how different people come at a problem. This does that so well. I also really loved Cain, who is very much, although he is the Dark Lord Cain, he's very much a puppy dog golden retriever and very much a himbo. He's got a heart of gold, but he maybe doesn't think things through sometimes, and Isabel has to kind of restrain him. Another thing I'm really enjoying about the book is Isabel has face blindness, which I've never seen. This is the week for me to find new representation. But yeah, I've never seen face blindness in anything, specifically in a book, specifically in a main character. And actually, it comes up repeatedly. Isabel will be in big meetings of, say, council members, and she'll use things like their robes of office or particular types of body language to tell who people are. And it's really interesting to see her figure out who different people are, to see where that creates challenges for her. There's a couple of times she mentions in the text in the past where she's put her foot in things because she's assumed and then got it wrong, but she doesn't want anyone to know because obviously it's a weakness that the cardinals will then exploit. It's something completely unique, but it's also woven through her character so well. I don't have any clue where the rest of the story is going to go. I'm assuming the World Games are going to become more of a feature. Maybe Kane is going to be competing. So far, this is a real page turner, and this is probably going to be my first 5-star of the month. The only other book that I'm currently reading is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This is for my 4th square on the bingo board, and I have started it, but I have barely started. I'm a chapter, maybe a few pages into it, so I really don't have much to tell you. Maybe once I finish these other two, I might try and kind of hammer down and read some of this before the end of the readathon, but I have a funny feeling that it's going to be the rest of the month project. Okay, so I have my kind of final thoughts for you on both the books that I was reading. I have finished You Had Me at Happy Hour by Timothy Janovsky, and this one's a complicated one to kind of wrap up. I think I've given you a fairly good idea of what the story is. TikTok famous mixologist coming to work in a small town restaurant where he falls for the sommelier, the wine guy of the restaurant. And the two of them, for their own different reasons, are not looking for relationships, and they kind of come to a friends with benefits agreement. Neither Greg or Julian are planning on staying around long. They both have a reason that they will be leaving town relatively soon. Both of them are very determined that they are not going to be catching feelings. But obviously it's a romance, and they are. And I think possibly that concept is maybe where this book fell down for me, because they come to this arrangement fairly quickly, and there's just not a lot of room in the book for the yearning and the getting to know each other before they start dating. I just felt like I was missing some of that getting to know you section of the romantic build-up. So for me, that just didn't really work the way it probably would have for readers that like a friends with benefits to lovers storyline. I think I said in my last update, but I will continue through the entire book, is the representation. Both in the actual careers they had, I've never seen a mixologist or a sommelier as main characters. I've never seen them. I don't think I've really ever seen them in books. They're very much like, the guy brought the wine over. Neither of those kind of careers have I ever seen featured as main character moments. But more than that, the actual characters themselves. Julian has fairly extreme OCD and a lot of childhood trauma from the drunk driving accident, which led to him living with his aunt and uncle who run the restaurant. There's various moments where his aunt and him discuss his childhood and the very, very gradual process that they had to kind of work through to get Julian to trust them again after what he felt like as the mistakes and betrayals of his mother's behaviour. So that kind of childhood trauma and how it kind of ripples through was dealt with really nicely. I want to say, without being able to obviously speak to it, that I thought the OCD was handled quite well as well. It wasn't cutesy, having to put things in a row OCD. It was OCD that really did affect Julian's choices, is the way his kind of romantic relationships worked. Greg is on medication for extreme anxiety. He has been a TikTok kind of celebrity almost. And he spiraled into debt. He's been unable to maintain his lifestyle in New York, and he's come to live in his cousin's spare room. The anxiety medication he's on has been something that affected his past relationship because it kind of leads to difficulties in performing. And his last boyfriend had a real problem with kind of assuming that meant that Greg thought he was unattractive when he didn't. There are quite a lot of kind of spicy scenes scattered throughout this book, and I will say the smut is really well written. It's not only about having OCD or anxiety, but he blends their actual personalities and their neurodivergencies and the practical ways you might have to work around said neurodivergencies. And he writes them into the smut scenes. They're never glossed over. They're very much the focus in the way the two guys are able to have sex. And he manages to make it really sexy at the same time. I had definitely never seen a couple dealing with erectile dysfunction in a sex scene, and yet this book does it really smoothly, really flawlessly, doesn't make a joke of it, doesn't make a production of it, It kept the scene really romantic and really spicy without it feeling like it was in any way making fun of or treating it as something kind of clinical or to poke a stick at. It was very, very well done. It's by no means a bad contemporary romance. It's probably still, even without the representation, a really solid contemporary romance. And that representation, I think, does pull it up because it's so unusual and so interesting. But something about it just didn't click for me the way I wanted it to. But we are going onwards and upwards. And the next book that I finished is The Holy Maiden's Guide to Getting Kidnapped. And this has been my first 5-star of the month. This is the Romantasy for me. I have said in so many videos that I'm not a Romantasy reader, but I love seeing how passionate Romantasy readers get about the books they love. I would love to try more of it. I would love to find a Romantasy that works for me and lets me be on that kind of Romantasy hype train. And this might be it. This was absolutely a 5-star. I have already looked up to see if there's a sequel, and there is. And since I read this as an arc, I will be both ordering myself a physical copy of this and pre-ordering the sequel immediately. I want a whole series of books in this universe. I could have a spin-off book for each of her dragon maidens and be completely happy. I loved this book. I loved the politics in it, which were complicated, and I loved the magic system, which was well thought out. People have different magical powers, different levels of magical powers, and every one of those magical powers comes at a cost that is completely different. It's up to you whether you let people know the cost of your power or not. As we said, Jezebel's is that she can heal anyone, but it costs her a day of her life. Her bodyguard Alzia has a power to manipulate metal. She's basically the most superpowered Magneto in the world. She's literally called the world's greatest monster. And she's one of the kind of few people in the world that has what they kind of call extinction level powers. She could literally bring down the sun from the sky if she chose to. She can control the metal in people's bodies, she can control the metal on the ground, but she can only use her power when someone she loves is in danger. So Jezebel can't use her in this big contest that's coming because it's all for show. However, the contest is deeply tied into this world politics because any country could have one of these extinction level powered people in their country. Wars are very much a kind of mutually assured destruction type of thing. And instead, there has been a kind of blood pact across the countries that they will honour the results of these kind of yearly tournaments. The winners will get kind of tithes from the losers in a sliding scale of kind of most wins to lowest wins. When countries can't afford to pay the tithes that the winners demand, the winners can choose instead to possibly like rewrite one of the country's laws. They can choose to make demands and kind of political or social maneuvers. And that's where Jezebel really wants. She wants her country, or she wants Kane's country, to win this so that she can move through some social reform. Then we have Isabel, who is our holy maiden. And she's probably now one of my all-time favourite characters. I loved how she genuinely does care about people. She genuinely wants to help. She wants to help the refugees. She wants to help the citizens. It's why she puts her life at risk to use her healing ability, even though she knows it's going to ultimately cost her her own life. But she's also incredibly pragmatic. I do love that contrast, as I said, I think earlier, between her and Donya, the different ways that women, or people in general, but specifically women, because we don't see enough very, very clever women in politics in fiction. But I love the way it showed that they could both have completely different strategies and different angles. They're both trying to achieve good for the community. There's no right or wrong answer. I really liked that, but I also, as a personal preference, loved Isabel's strategy, where she was, I don't want to say sneaky, but she was slightly sneakier. She was slightly more underhand. She would play different people off each other. She would finagle concessions that she wanted out of people that maybe weren't the lofty goals that Donya had in mind, but were something achievable and I could step forward in the process. And I really loved watching her play the game with the cardinals and with the king and with the queen and move people around. I love the way she used people's perception of her, the Holy Maiden. There were expectations, there were assumptions that people made about her based on her power, based on her position within that religion. And she was completely capable and willing to use their perceptions against them. So for me, on a kind of romantasy fantasy spectrum, this gave me everything I was looking for in a political fantasy on its own. And then the romance. And the romance. I love the romance. Cain is the Dark Lord, and he's got that title because he's kind of a renegade state. He has come in and he is not kind of recognised by this association of countries that take part in this kind of World Games peacekeeping treaty. He's an outsider, and it's more that has got him this title of the Dark Lord rather than anything bad he's actually done. I mean, he also does kill quite a lot of people when he's angry, but he's very much a golden retriever. He's maybe not the brightest spark in the box, but he's great at strategy, and he is devoted, he's dedicated to finding and saving his brother who was taken years ago. He is devoted to protecting Isabel after he feels what he feels he owes her because she protected him at the beginning. He then, obviously, as they build a relationship, you see him be the most adorable puppy dog. He takes her lead, and I love the dynamic in the relationship. It was also, I think, the first time I have seen BSM treated the way this was treated in this book, where for a start it is the woman who is the dominant and a man that is the submissive partner, but also that it wasn't treated as kind of dark and kinky. It was treated as just the way they have sex, the way their relationship works outside of the bedroom. It was sweet and it was tender, and it permeated through their characters as well as the sex scenes, without the sex scenes feeling like they were there to be sex scenes. The whole thing was just kind of all blended together. The world, the characters, the politics, the kink, and it was 5 stars. I can't anymore. It was 5 stars. It was amazing. I highly, highly recommend this one. I'm not actually sure specifically what date it comes out on, but if it's not already out, I will put the release date somewhere on the screen. So realistically, I think that is all I'm gonna get done for this readathon. I'll be honest, I have not picked up Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil since I last checked in. I'm still interested in it, and I do have it. It's a buddy read. It's a not even a buddy read. It's a buddy read, and it's a podcast book. So I definitely need to read it, and I need to read it properly. But I don't know. I think I've seen too many reviews at the moment say how it's really, really slow to get going. It's a little off-putting. I'm sure once I get going, I'll have a great time with it, but I'm not feeling motivated to pick it up right now. So realistically, I don't think I'm going to get that bingo square filled. In theory, obviously, I could switch that out for something else. I don't have anything on my TBR for this month that I think I would put on there, and I don't want to add anything to my TBR for this month because my TBR this month is already massive. Did you see my TBR game? This month is massive. So I would rather kind of try and get through the books I have already got in mind and just accept it. We're going to call it a win. We're going to call it a success, even if I didn't actually get the bingos I hope to get. And I hope you have enjoyed this slightly disjointed vlog. If you have read any of these authors, any of these books, do let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what your favourite romance was this month. As always, I really, really appreciate any likes, any subscriptions to the channel, and if you do want to leave a comment but just don't know what you want to say, then leave me some kind of romance themed emoji. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.